Every now and again, you come across a human being who's just impossible not to like. In the real estate space, this can be pretty rare. In the real estate coaching world, it's exceedingly rare. Today, I interview Wyatt Reed, a man whose heart jumps right out at you. Wyatt and I share a lot in common. We are both coaches. We both value our family, our faith. So, without any further delay at all, please let me introduce Wyatt Reed. Wyatt, welcome to the show.
Man, I really appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. It's good to see you. So, why don't you tell me a little bit? We're obviously going to talk a little bit about what you do, but tell us a little bit about your background. Like, where do you live? Like, what part of the United States are you in? Like, just tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, man. I live in southern Middle Tennessee, right on the border of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. And I grew up, being taught go to school, go to college, get a job. And I was no good at school, so I ended up getting a job really quick. But I was going to school for engineering, and I flunked out my second year, and I went to work. And I'll tell you this right now, I became an engineer with an engineer's salary before some of my buddies graduated from college. So if that tells you a little bit about work ethic, but yeah, man, I grew up an engineer and just I got to where I wanted to be at a young age, where I thought, I needed to be, and it wasn't enough. I felt like God was calling me to do more and do bigger things. So that's how I got into real estate.
Man, I love that. I love that. And so you have kind of an analytical mind, and not necessarily a sales.
Processes.
What's that?
Yeah, processes. I love processes.
Man, you are speaking my language. I love that because in my book, the Time Wealthy Investor, and I'm working on another book called the Time Wealthy Advantage, and that really is very process driven. And my background, ironically enough, is in accounting, and people who know me are like, "How in the world did you get through an accounting program?" I'm like, my interests were different back then, right?
Mhm.
So I really, that's one of the things that really winds my clock about what you say, because you're all like, hey man, I want to make this process oriented. I want to make this process driven. And the reason why I say that, and I'm making such a big point about this, is because look, there are so many, um, coaches and gurus and mentors out there that are what? They're very sales driven. Like they
Mhm.
are like you got the Grant Cardone style, like punch you in the mouth sort of lead gen guys. Now don't get me wrong, lead gen is incredibly important and a good sales process is incredibly important, but they lead
Mhm.
with that, and that's all they care about are those sales numbers. And man, that's great, but out of the four core functions of business, you got lead gen, you got sales, you got operations and accounting. Most people just kind of like do the sale and they want to go on to the next deal. I'm like, dude, you've got the operations and accounting part, right?
Right.
So where
Right.
you and I may struggle a little bit on the lead gen and sales part, but we don't ignore it. Of course, but the that other side that you still got 50% of your business to focus on, right?
Yeah, yeah. For me, like it takes, and I've worked with a ton of people over the past 5 years, so many different kinds of people. But what I notice a lot is people have a hard time at taking their hands off the wheels, and they want to do everything themselves, right? But for me, it's the exact opposite. Maybe, and it may be a little bit of a downfall for me too, because I want to hire out. I want to get my hands off of it as quickly as possible. So, just because I understand systems and processes, I understand putting people in place, and putting in systems and processes, and that's my background. So maybe I have an easier time at doing that, but maybe I do it too quick before I completely understand everything. You know what I mean? That's something that I've kind of learned about myself over the past few years.
It's an easy trap to fall into because let's face it, what are we telling people? Hey man, fire yourself as quick as possible,
Yeah.
right? Like, but you don't want to wind up. Now I've got a few years on you, so congratulations for figuring it out way faster than I did. But in my 51 years on this planet, it took me. I'm a slow study. But one of the foundational things that I did wrong was not just create one miserable job for myself, but hundreds of miserable jobs for myself.
Yep, yep, and it's the same in any business too. It's not just real estate, but in coaching as well. I've talked to so many coaches who are either phasing out of coaching or like miserable because they've created themselves a prison that's kind of based around themselves solving the problems all the time. And I started out coaching like that. I
Yeah.
started the one-on-one model, the hey, everything revolves around me, call me if you need anything.
Yep.
And since I've moved to like more of a community based, I have students that are leading some of our calls. I have students
Yeah.
that are answering questions. I still get on every single day. Like don't think I'm not,
Yeah.
giving them the attention they deserve. But it's so amazing to see the guys that are in the group that had started out not knowing anything at all. They're helping new people that are in their same shoes now months down the road. And it's just it I never thought it would be like that, and it's just amazing to be able to see it. They're meeting up on their own, they're hanging out, they're taking pictures together, they're
Yeah.
friends and doing deals and raising money together, and it's just been like, I'm like a proud dad over here. I'm like, man, this is so awesome to see.
Man, that's such a good point. And now I am on the other side of that equation where I really enjoy the one-to-one coaching, but I do need to be careful where I'm not always putting myself in the middle of the equation where it gets to the point where they can't make any decisions for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I've had the privilege of being able to see multiple different coaches that I look up to and I respect do multiple different things, and I've really been blessed, I guess is the word I'm looking for, blessed to be able to take nuggets from each of these guys and see what they struggled with, what they were successful with, what made them happy, what made them, not happy. And I was able to kind of build my own thing across that. Like I feel like I took a lot of the good from all of these different coaches. I've had 4 coaches in the past 5 years, and man, I'm so grateful for them for, doing exactly what I've done, failed so many times, and then put everything together for these new guys to succeed way quicker than what we have, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean actually. And that's amazing. It's great to see their level of success and their rate of success so much faster. But I want to talk a little bit about what it is that you do. So many people know that I'm primarily a buy and hold guy. You take a slightly different approach, right?
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. So my main bread and butter is seller financing, right?
Mhm.
So we take your approach from the very beginning, the Burr method, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And then we leverage other people's money,
Mhm.
like hard money and private money. We buy these properties and then we refinance with a bank. So now we've got a mortgage. We're all in without any of our own money, leveraging everybody else's money.
Mhm.
And then we turn around, instead of putting a tenant in there, we put a tenant buyer in there. There's a difference on what we pay for all in and what we sell it to them for. Usually it's 30 to $50,000 on average.
Sure.
There's a gap between the interest rate that we have and what they have. And the what I love about the seller financing model is you've got the cash flow, you get capital up front from the down payment, right? But you have none of the same responsibilities as a landlord.
Mhm.
So they're maintaining the property because they're actually buying it,
Mhm.
and they reimburse you for the insurance and the taxes as well. So
Sure.
it's I wish I would have known about it way sooner, but
Yeah.
the foundation is the Burr method too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So let me try to poke a hole in this. Okay. And um, really, what I'm struggling with is I like to buy and hold properties, and it's pretty rare that I sell anything. But I guess for the reason for that is I don't want to always feel like I have to go out and hunt. Like at the end of the day, I I've got assets that eventually I'm gonna own outright, and the only thing that I'm gonna have is obviously the management, the taxes, insurance, and the upkeep, and I don't have to continually go out and hunt. And certainly, I'm not sending a lot of money to the government once these things are paid off, versus having to go out and do this transactional thing all the time. So, what would your response be to that?
I mean, that's a great question, and it really just depends on that individual, right? Because it's like, what's your end goal? A lot of people say generational wealth, and I think the whole generational wealth thing, I think it's a trap, man. Like most of the time I want my kids to have an amazing life, like a life like no other, and I want them to be set up with the knowledge to be able to do that themselves. I don't just want to hand them $100 million one day before I die and then them, blow it by two generations down the road, right? I want to, my generational wealth is the knowledge to be able to do it themselves if that's what they want to do. So with that being said, we are seller financing these for 20 to 30 years. And we're seller financing them for, as of right now, it used to be our rates were around 5, 6%, right? Now we're closer to the 8, 9%, but we're always having that 4% gap on a minimum of 4% gap on what we're selling it for as far as interest goes.
Hmm.
So let's just use this for example, $130,000. And I mean, that's low. We're usually selling for 150, 170, somewhere around there. We're
Sure.
usually buying them for the 100 to 130 range.
Hmm.
But over the course of 30 years at 12.5%, which is what we're at right now, selling it to, I mean, a $130,000 house, total interest paid on that's $369,000.
Sure.
Like, and we're buying three, four, five a month. So
Right.
you can imagine how that adds up over the
Right.
course of that 20 years. Yes, you do have to buy. I mean, once you get it up and get it rolling and get that cash flow that you want, that like makes you happy, right?
Hmm.
Then you can kind of pull back and you can start buying like one to two a month, maybe one every other month,
Sure.
to so that you'll always have one. But I mean, 20 to 30 years is a long time, and we've been doing it for 2 years now. We haven't had a single person we've had to foreclose on yet. So
Yeah, this does make a lot of sense, and I like this approach for a couple of reasons. Primarily, I can see this being good because I can tell you that people who do have a sense of ownership do tend to take better care of the properties. So if you did have to foreclose, obviously you're getting the property back, probably in better shape than you would if it was just a regular rental. But you said something earlier that I really want to highlight, and it's probably one of the smartest things I've ever heard someone say around the whole subject of the generational wealth issue. Because I always had a problem with that too. But you were saying like, I want to leave them generational wealth that's around knowledge, not necessarily around dollars.
right, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
So
I like to take my family with me when I go to these properties. I don't go to them much anymore, systems and processes, thank goodness. But when we do go, I definitely like to load up the car and take them with me. And they don't. It don't seem like they think much of it, but I know that they do. I know they're soaking it in, and they're like, "Oh, we own this house. We own this house. Like that's crazy. We have a lot of houses, Daddy.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome to be able to do
Well,
stuff like that."
technically, we own the paper. you
Yeah,
know,
right,
technically,
right.
we don't own it. I want to shift the conversation just a little bit towards coaching, and really want to get your assessment into what, because there's a ton of coaches out there, right? And I want to get your feel in terms of what you see in the coaching landscape right now. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you see out there right now? Um,
Yeah, yeah, man. Coaches are a different breed, and like you can tell a legitimate coach for like someone who cares about people, and like that's why they do it. Like that's our passion. We love to help people solve problems. We love to help people like become financially free to do whatever you want to do. Like I love being able to meet up with the guys that I've helped quit their jobs in the middle of the day, like on at times that they would have never been able to meet up with me, right? So that you can tell the difference between those guys and the guys that are just kind of like funneling in money from people,
yeah,
and you're not seeing a huge change in those people's lives. So
yeah.
yeah, it's got to be. I feel like that it's got to be something you're passionate about that brings you joy, and it's not about the money. It can't be about the money if you truly care about those people.
Man, I could not agree more. I think that is well said. And there's a lot of people who I feel get into the coaching game because they feel like they can make a lot of money at that, and that's pretty transparent. I mean, I end up coaching a lot of those people who who fire those other coaches, and they sense that it's just a money grab. And now I do say this, I hear this argument a lot of times, like, well, if it meant that much to you, why don't you coach people for free? Man, I have coached a lot of people for free, and it's exceedingly rare when I actually see someone getting the level of traction because they don't have any skin in the game. So I do feel like having some level of investment is appropriate. But so and I think, well, a lot of times what will happen is people confuse information for transformation, and a good coach will help you not just gathering the right information but also helping you make transformation, because they do see your blind spots and they do see areas where maybe you're hitting for a fall and you don't necessarily recognize it because they've seen the mistake that they have made, or they've seen that same mistake made by others, and that's the benefit of a coach. So you actually have a program coming up, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I actually am working on a 90-day coaching challenge, thanks to you. After we talked last time, I was like, hey, I've got to test this out and see how it works. And so far, it's gone really well, actually. So, essentially our community is a group community. You get in, we do a one-on-one onboarding call. Like, we're going to go deep dive into your financials, deep dive into your time, your schedule, anything and everything. And then we're going to build up a marketing plan for you from day one, whether that be free lead sources or paid lead sources, and we can get into that. But it's custom budgeted to you and your time and your budget, right? If you've got no money, we've still got a marketing plan for you. But after that, we've set up goals for you to hit, and then we do weekly sales calls on Tuesdays where we role play, we communicate, we teach them how to pitch multiple offers, we teach them how to talk to people on the phone, the whole sales side of things. And then on Thursdays, we do a support Zoom where we go individually, we talk, we answer questions, we say, hey, where are you at? Where are you focused on? What are you doing? Do you have deals? Let's run numbers. Anything and everything, wherever they're at, that's what we're doing. So um, we do have coaching modules. I always say I feel like every coaching program has coaching modules, but for me, like, I tried to do step by step everything we did from the beginning with the most important things up front. Revenue in first position, and I tried to make it as baby step as possible, so
Mhm.
even my 9-year-old can understand what
Yeah.
to do, right?
Yeah. That's great, man. That's great. So there's lots of support, and you're obviously meeting up with them. And the fact that you do this in a group setting, I think it's important, because they do. Now I do also do some group coaching as well, but most of mine is basically one to one. But I think that the value in the group, just like you said, in the 90-day challenge, I do have them meet weekly. The thing that I love about the group dynamic is that there's that little bit of that social proof, and there's that little bit of that competition, and there's that little bit of, oh, hey, he's doing it and she's doing it. Man, I need to kind of get off my butt and go do something.
Right.
So I think that's so smart. And the fact that you've got people now, I'm assuming there's people that you know, kind of go from one to the next, cohort, if you will, or the next group. And I think that's really, really smart.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everybody's pushing everybody. I strategically, like to encourage certain people. I like to call them out because, a lot of the times they don't want to share everything. I like to call them out and say, look, hey, Gatlin's got a win. He just closed this flip. It was $47,000, dude. That's awesome. And then, he's a guy that he worked as a Waffle House manager, and he quit his job within the first year. And so I always like to call him out, but
That's amazing.
he's referred some guys in. I'm like, look, you guys actually have a golden opportunity because it's crazy. He didn't get his first deal until like 6 months in, and that's like, for us, that's not average. Average is 60 to 90 days. But
Wow.
now I'm encouraging them, hey, you need to get your deal quicker than he did. You've
Mhm.
got this opportunity to have him in here and me and learn from each other and see what he did and do
Sure.
do something a little different. So it is healthy competition, but like I said, man, they're helping each other, they're encouraging each other. It is crazy. They're all I would say 99% of them are go-givers. Like
Sure.
they're encouraging all the time.
I love it, man. So I get people from all across the United States that watch the show. Um, what do you think that like you might hear someone say, "Oh man, I don't think this is going to work in my state. I don't think this is going to work in my neighborhood." Um, what do you say to that?
Yeah, man. I don't know if it's been the time that I've put in. And I feel like we definitely need to we need to be maybe I'm not the best at being soft with the people who are making excuses, right? Just because being a coach, we take a lot of discovery calls. We talk to a lot of people. We've heard every single excuse in the book,
Yep.
and it gets tiring after a little while. But I've noticed that I love working with people that they're already all in before the call even
Oh
takes
yeah.
place, right? Obviously, we all love those guys,
Yep.
but I would just say, hey man, look, I've got people in Arizona, I've got people in Ohio, I've got people in New York that are all doing real estate. Now, are they all doing real estate in their backyard? No, some of them are. The guys in New York are, but it's definitely possible to do it over the state line.
Yeah.
We've got people. That's another great thing about the group. We were just having this conversation last night. I've got a girl in Tennessee who's got a couple of properties she wants to look at in Pensacola. And I've got a student in Pensacola who's doing amazing over there right now. And she's like, well, I'm going to have to fly down there every couple of weeks, blah, 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 blah. And I was able to connect them and now they're looking at properties together. So that's another
Doesn't that
great
feel
thing.
awesome?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
amazing.
I
It's
love it.
amazing. So don't it's the excuses, man, that like it doesn't matter what you're gonna do. If you are making excuses, you're already, out pretty much. You're talking yourself out. So
I run into there's no more heartbreaking thing that I find when I do not like giving up on people. Like
mm,
but I heard this analogy and I'm not sure exactly where I heard it, but in an analogy of like a like a Coast Guard rescue diver, like a rescue swimmer, and you got a rescue helicopter that's flying out to shipwreck. There's hundreds of people in the water. They're not going to be able to save all of them, and the rescue swimmer gets dropped into the water, and they make the determination in terms of who they're going to save first.
mm,
Well, they save the people that are swimming towards them. And
yeah.
I heard that analogy and I was like, man, that is so true because the guy that is terrified, that's holding on to the piece of driftwood that's on fire, that's floating out to sea, he is hard to save, man. He is
Mm,
hard to save. But the person swimming toward you going, I'm ready to get in that basket, that's the person you can save. And unfortunately, you can't save them all. And it breaks my heart sometimes, like people who sign up for coaching and they get so stuck, or they have been so stuck emotionally in their lives, and man, it's just kind of pry them out of their old habits and everything else.
mhm,
That breaks my heart sometimes, but unfortunately, sometimes I just have to. Sometimes I have to recognize I've got other people that I can help, and I can't use all of my bandwidth and all of my energy just trying to get them unstuck. I'm pretty good at what I do, but I mean, sometimes, I mean, you got to recognize that they got to let go of the driftwood.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard Tom, which is my mentor. I've heard him say, people say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And he's like, no, you take their head and you shove it in the water. Do everything you can to make them successful or to try to
Yeah,
make them successful.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right. I mean, I just it's and it also goes back to what you were saying. I was going to say this earlier when you were talking about the people who are like don't have the money to join. I don't know if you dealt with this when you were first getting started, but I wanted to help everybody. Like I tried to make it to where I could help everybody, and the people who either got in at the very, very, very least that they could, or the people that I just let in to try to work with them and
yeah,
get paid off their first deal. I don't think a single person made it longer than 2 months.
yeah,
So
yeah. And there's something to that, man. It's because unless there's real, I mean, I've done the same thing. I've invited people to masterclass events that I've had for free, because I wanted to help them out. I've invited them to different things. I've sent them resources and books and all sorts of stuff. And then I check back in with them. And I'm just telling you, you're 100% right. There's just people that just, unless they've got real skin in the game, they just don't do much.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of my last couple of onboarding, I mean, they've been referrals from students, and that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, listen, I give a 30% referral fee to my students who bring
Nice.
in other students, right, of upfront collected cash. And it's just like, look, if you have the conversation with them and you go ahead and tell them how much it's going to cost, and they call me, I know they're already sold.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even have to try. But if you tell them how much it's going to be and I don't hear from them, I don't have to call them. I already know, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate your time here. So, how do people find you? How do people get in contact with you? What's the best way? Of course, I'll put anything you share. I'll be happy to put in the show notes as well.
So, yeah, so all you have to do is text me. I've actually got an Alabama number. So, like I said, I'm right on the Tennessee Alabama border, but it's 256-686-9815. If you send me your email, or if you just want to talk, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about real estate, getting into real estate. But if you want some free resources, I've got sales scripts, I've got calculators, I've got I'm putting together a free bundle to start giving out to people.
Nice.
So I'd love to give you guys that for anybody who'd be interested for sure.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's really gracious of you to give out your number like that because I know and I really hope people do take advantage of that and get in contact with you. Well, Wyatt Reed, it was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. Any final thoughts? Any final things that you want to wrap us up with and put a bow on it?
Man, I'm so grateful that you allowed me on this thing, man. I love talking to you. I love how we align. All I got to say is, man, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting into real estate, or you're thinking about hiring Mark as a coach, or me, either one, look, just take action. Just take massive imperfect action. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be perfect. Just take the action, make the leap, and I'm going to tell you right now, you won't be disappointed in it.
I am not even going to try to improve on that. I'm just going to say thank you, Wyatt. I really appreciate seeing you. Thanks so much for watching the show today, everybody. Of course, if you like the show, please subscribe, tell other people, because again, if you don't tell other people, the terrorists win. I don't know. Maybe we can say that. All right. Again, Wyatt Reed, thanks so much. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.